Hi, and welcome to the Holistic Matters podcast series. In the last regular episode of the Nutrition, Education, and Racial Disparities in Health special series, our guest is Charlie Uihlein, Executive Director of Milwaukee nonprofit organization Teens Grow Greens. This organization focuses on teen development through hands-on, experience-based internships involving planting, tending, harvesting, and cooking fresh produce, as well as learning about healthy food economics and food justice issues. At Teens Grow Greens, one of their most treasured values is to respect others and respect the environment. We're excited to have Charlie on the podcast to talk about the mission of this important nonprofit organization. Let's jump in.
Charlie, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to talk today about Teens Grow Greens. And can you first kind of give us an overview of what Teens Grow Greens is and how it works with the teens in Milwaukee?
Sure. So I'll give you what we call the elevator pitch. So Teens Grow Greens is a nonprofit that focuses on youth development. And what we do is we develop teenagers' life skills through hands-on experience. And the teenagers that we really focus on are teenagers on the north side of Milwaukee and then teenagers on the south side of Milwaukee. And there's probably maybe a national audience, so maybe you don't know that much about Milwaukee, but Milwaukee is unfortunately known as one of the more segregated cities in Milwaukee. So when we say that, what we mean is that on the north side is predominantly African American, and on the south side of Milwaukee is predominantly Hispanic, as well as a significant immigrant population. And so what we're really looking for here is that we are looking for teenagers that are from low-income neighborhoods and that are also from neighborhoods that have high rates of health-related illnesses.
So as I heard you saying, these are diverse neighborhoods that the teens, potentially family members, have multiple risk of chronic disease or themselves could have chronic disease, right? Because based on where they live and the risk of their neighborhoods. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I think poverty is an absolutely crushing type of situation that if you are in poverty, it also means that you're probably not getting good access to education, just based on how the school system is kind of set up, at least in Milwaukee. And then you might not have easy access to grocery stores. And that's what they would call food desert, but I've heard some people not really like that term. So I just say, like, you are not really easily able to access the grocery stores, and maybe the food stores nearby don't always have the healthiest food.
Mm-hmm. So how does that lead to the program that you guys are doing and the values that you're trying to instill in the kids who are involved in your program?
So this started because I was a teacher at Mesprin High School, and I was a teacher on the north side of Milwaukee. So most of the students that I was teaching were African American, and they were from the north side of Milwaukee. And what I always saw, I wasn't a good student myself in high school. So, what I always thought was that education, the formal education system, is pretty good at developing success for students that either are good at academics but are good at sports. But that leaves out a very sizable chunk of the population. And I think it's so vital for teenagers to feel that they can be successful and they feel like they're in the driver's seat of their lives before they graduate. Because then after that, the support systems are kind of ripped away. They say go to college. It's you're kind of on your own with your family. So what I thought was really important was that teenagers had more experiential learning opportunities where they could feel successful, opportunities where they could develop their skills, and also, opportunities where they could make some money. And I think that's what Teens Grow Greens is all about, is that we are about building community and a supportive community that you can build and develop their skills and that these skills can then be put on a resume, and then they're easily translatable to whatever you choose to do in life. And, the way that we're tracking our students is we're saying, okay, so how many of them are graduating from high school? Because there is a correlation there. And then how many are getting jobs in the following year? And, 2020 was not a good year for employment. I think the national average for teenagers for being employed was somewhere around 20 to 30%. But all of our graduates, and that's like 6 years of graduates, like 73% of them were employed. So we're doing something right. The autonomy and the skills are translating into success, at least in numbers, after they graduate from the program.
In the title of the internship and the programs you guys are doing is green. So can you just kind of define what that means and what does that look like in the curriculum? You talked about how they're creating life skills, but how are you doing that with greens?
Greens are money. No, I'm just kidding. Greens are, so the garden is a great teacher. I would say the garden is probably one of the better classrooms I've seen. The classrooms we have set up right now for school are not so good. I mean, it serves a lot of students, but the garden and the experiential learning that can go on in a garden as well as with agriculture is wonderful. So first of all, how we are developing some of these skills is that we are first learning about the food system. We watch Food Inc., we talk about it, debate some of the food system, why things are set up the way they are. Then we learn about how food impacts your mind, body, and spirit. And then we'll work in cooking skills and how to cook healthfully from that. And then we'll set goals. And we'll set goals to improve our mind, body, and spirit and how food affects them. So it could be as simple as replacing water or replacing soda with water in your diet. And, all throughout this too, the teens are also learning how to grow food from seed at our social enterprise, Weber's Greenhouse. There's a lot of skills here, or there's a lot of different things that they are learning that are adding up to food is being very important. Food is affecting you and how you act. And then also how you act specifically with food can impact others. We've seen that in the first unit too, that a lot of the healthy choices that the teens make in their goal setting end up impacting their parents, which I think is very interesting because everyone says adults' habits are so hard to change. But I think when it is ingrained into the family, I think there's a better likelihood of it changing.
So Charlie, just wanted to go back to the question about the graduates of the students in the program and their employment. How does the students or the teens who participate in your program, do you see a correlation, or is their high schooling impacted in any way by having them participate in your program? How are their, academics, the way they approach school, is that in any way impacted?
So the short answer is yes, but we don't track their grades. We've had a valedictorian in Teens Grow Greens, and then we've also had teenagers who are dealing with homelessness, teenagers who are in a court-ordered service called wraparound, which is basically like trying to wrap them with as many services as possible. We do say that you need to handle your business at school to be in the internship, but one of the strongest things we believe is that some of the best teachers in the program are the other teens. So that's why we try to build this diversity of students within the program, and we don't just say we take the bottom of the class or we only take the best of the best. We haven't seen that to be successful, and we don't want to, have that type of community. You would call that a homogenous community, right? So what we can claim, and we don't do academic support, so we can't claim that because they've been in this internship, their grades will rise. Now, we've seen that in certain instances. What we can claim is that because they are employed, there's a higher likelihood of them graduating. And we've really seen that.
Okay.
That's a U.S. Department of Education research that says that employment is tied to higher rates of graduation. And, We've seen that. I mean, that's 100%. So 100% of graduates are on track or have already graduated from high school.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to get at, the attitude towards school and their capacity to graduate, having, participated in the program. I taught high school for a number of years, and I kind of saw the same thing when I did,
Yeah.
students who had an outside purpose, especially for the ones who academia wasn't, their strong suit, because that's the type of school I taught at anyway. It was students who didn't pass the entrance exam for a high school, and they
Mm.
got to high school, needing a lot of remedial work. And so the attitude towards school and graduating was just not really there. But when they had an outside purpose, something showing them what they can do outside of academia in the real world and using skills and knowledge, it really did change the attitude towards school and contributed to them graduating.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge. You must have gotten that question as a teacher, like, why are we doing this? Why
And
do
I
we,
taught math and science, so I got that all the time.
yeah, like, what is this about? And best answer I could give to them is like, well, I taught AP. So it's like, well, if you pass this, then you're not going to have to take as many college classes. And that kind of worked. But then there's also stuff where it's like, I thought communication was one of the most important things you could learn, but they don't test that, right? They
Mhm.
can't test that. So that was not as heavily influenced. And I saw that as a real detriment, right? It's like, I told all my students the last test that I ever took that kind of showed how competent I was in grad school. After that, it's all about like how you present yourself, how you can network, work on a team. And so it was hard for me to tell them like, all right, you work as hard as you can in this class and you're going to be set, it doesn't add up for me. It seemed dishonest. And I don't feel that way in Teens Grow Greens. I feel like we are teaching them how to go out and do it by themselves. The best compliment we can get from the graduates is that they don't need us. But we still want to be able to support them. But
Mhm.
if they are able to go out and get what they want and they're pretty good, then I think that's what we want.
One of the other things that you said that I think is really impactful is that you do see a change in the whole family. And by educating them on some of these kind of basic food and nutrition things, that it's making an impact on their family. And I think from public health, that's a really important step, right? Because they're having an influence beyond just what they're doing themselves. They're influencing their family, which is then probably influencing their broader community.
With the family, we're trying to find ways to track that and to impact the family even more. And one of the ways we're really trying to do that is our social enterprise Weber's. It's about 100-year-old greenhouse, and it looks like it's 100 years old. And we're trying to redevelop this into a headquarters that can really be a place that the teens deserve, a place that they can feel welcome and that can have services for them and for their families. So a teaching kitchen that could have these nutritional cooking classes, not only so the teens could learn, but their families could come in as well as the surrounding community of Weber's, because Weber's is located on the north side in a predominantly African American community. So that's something that we are going towards, impacting not just the teens, but their surrounding circles, because we've seen that as really positive. That if you have somebody else in the teens' lives who's really echoing, this is important, I know it's hard, but you need to finish, then there's a greater chance of success of them graduating.
One of the things that we were excited to be part of earlier, and Karma was part of this, is having the opportunity to talk to the teens earlier this year and talk to them about product development. Could you talk a little bit about their end project and how they take what they learned from growing and kind of all those skills and how that comes about
Yeah.
to their product?
Yeah, so I'm really proud of the education team because they've worked out a curriculum in this year as well as the next that really builds on the skills. So in the beginning, they're talking about their, as you would say, the elevator pitch, right? So they're already practicing in the beginning the elevator pitch, and all they have to do in the entrepreneurship unit is move that into the product that they create. The product also has a triple bottom line, right? So it is founded in the values that we are already talking about. You respect people, right? So you create something good that's for people. You respect the environment, so you have something that is really beneficial for the environment. And then the third line is that you also make money, right? And that is sort of that's where you want your product to be. And they're also going out there and they're using their sales and communication skills because they have our own, we partner with somebody for something called the Dolphin Pool, which is like the Shark Tank, but gentler. And then they will pitch it on stage. And then in years where there's not COVID, they'll be at the farmer's market, putting that out there, selling their product, and then whatever they sell, they get to keep. So they're figuring out that, I put in this work, I get this money. And in the past, what a lot of them have learned is I can make more money selling this rather than being employed at Teens Grow Greens. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the skills that, we developed in the early beginnings that have to do with just confidence, communication, teamwork, because they do it with a partner. And it's translating into them, and by the entrepreneurship unit, there's very little hand-holding, and we're not as involved as we were in the beginning, right? So we're kind of slowly pulling back and letting them do their thing.
How do you feel like, as a whole, the kids then go forward? I mean, they've learned a lot through this process, right? They've learned leadership skills, they've learned mind-body skills, nutrition. What has been the experience for the people who've graduated? How have they kind of changed their lives? You talked about graduation rates, but are there some other things that you've noticed when you've followed up with the kids who have gone through the program?
Sure. I mean, I'll give you some individual stories because I think those are helpful. So Quinn was a second year graduate, right? And what Quinn figured out is his dad was a cop, right? And so that was always in his life. But what Quinn figured out is he actually did like working with community members. And that kind of pushed him into becoming a police officer. And now he is a Milwaukee police officer, and as somebody that I'm happy to have as a police officer in Milwaukee. Another one in the very early stages, or he was the first year, Cole. He already had this kind of entrepreneurial mindset, but through Teens Grow Greens, he really refined his project, and he's continued on with this entrepreneurship. He went into college for entrepreneurship. He went on a couple of pitch it shows, and this actually happened with another graduate, Trayvon, too. And so they're each picking up certain parts that they're kind of connecting to an interest that they have, right? And then they're going from there. And a nice thing too is that a lot of our graduates now have the opportunity to be employed in-house. So we call these apprenticeships, and we're trying to tie them to the agricultural apprenticeships are tied to the Department of Workforce Development standards. You can be employed in the greenhouse. In fact, that's the main reason why we bought the greenhouse, is to have more in-house employment for graduates who do want to utilize those skills and build them. And then we also have education apprentices, where the graduates will work as an assistant educator on the North Side chapter as well as the South Side chapter. So we're getting better at the things we know we can be really good at, giving them further opportunities to really hone their skills and hopefully find a career track. Because a minority are going to college. And most of them are getting scholarships. Others are choosing a more career-based route, and they might move around a little bit, but that's where we really want to come in and say, all right, if you are interested in agriculture, there's Weber's, there's the garden apprenticeships. If you're interested in education, you can come on the education team. And if you're interested in customer service, let us connect you to those opportunities through our partners and find employment through that.
I mean, I think that's just fascinating because you're giving them skills that will last for their whole life, right?
They're very transferable.
Right. Even if they didn't think agriculture is my thing. But the idea that you know how to plant and grow something really is a unique skill that a lot of kids forget, or, we haven't passed that down as well. And I think that shows a lot of things. It shows hard work. You're willing to do the work. It shows that things take time, right? Like you can't just plant a seed and it becomes something immediately. And so they have to have kind of the stick-to-itiveness. I don't know if that's the right word, but, to keep it going and keep things happening.
Right.
And they have to nurture it too and keep putting in the effort. And as Sarah mentioned, that's stuff that would apply to so many different aspects of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I've seen that as a big part of my life. Step 1 is showing up. Step 2 is keeping at it, right?
Right.
And the nice thing about it too is I think a lot of the things some of the things we're asking them to do is hard, right? So mentoring like a group of kids during the summer, that's not easy, right? And they've got to basically run like a summer camp. But that's where the community comes in, and that's a supportive community that, if I fail, it's not going to be the worst thing in the world because I can get back up. I think that's what both of you are speaking to.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times everybody feels like failure is the end, but failure a lot of times is the beginning, right? And teaching kids that is a really hard thing. They don't always understand that failure is just an opportunity,
We read a lot of Brene Brown and as a staff.
I love her.
Yeah,
I love her.
I am in the Brene Brown fan club. And she, that's shame, right? So that's shame being the master emotion. And I think what you really got to teach people or teach teenagers that if I fail, I just failed at that one thing. It doesn't make me failure, right? That would be owning owning what, just happened rather than just saying, well, that one thing happened, but that doesn't make me who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And that also failure is a part of success. You cannot have success without the failure. Nobody gets it right the first time. You have to try and try again. And that every time you do fail, it leads you more often than not closer to being successful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, most definitely.
If you had one kind of parting statement about Teens Grow Greens, what would that be that you want to leave with the audience? I mean, I think we've talked about how the green part and how agriculture is really key to kind of understanding maybe life in general. But then, all those processes that these kids go through to get to understanding and accomplishment. So what are those parting thoughts, to the audience?
We grow more than plants, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when, you hear Teens Grow Greens, it's about agriculture. It's about the greens. The product is the teenager. Gardens and food is only good if you have someone there to tend to the garden and then eventually eat the food, right? And so that's what we are developing. We are trying to develop these teenagers that are, teenagers, it is a very hard age, but we want to make that easier for them by giving them the confidence that will support them and be successful.
If you can make that happen, a few lives, and then they can impact other people's lives, that's really going to change, the community as a whole.
Yeah. And we want them to stay in Milwaukee too. And that's part of the reason why we're trying to give them more employment opportunities, because we don't, selfishly, we want these teenagers to grow into adults, and we want them to stay here in Milwaukee so we can live next to them.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
The community support. Is that something you can tell us a bit more about in terms of, how the community has been supporting, how?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's now a number of ways to do that. We have a number of different volunteering opportunities. Sylvia, our program director, created a straight up like work with us. So you can work in the gardens with us. You can work at the greenhouse. You can learn alongside the teens. So, a lot of the teens will hear from professionals. They'll learn a lot about the food system, so the volunteers can learn alongside us. Those are great volunteering opportunities about how they can show up and show the teens that they are interested in them and they're interested in their success. Financial contributions are always huge. And the thing that I always tell the teens is that, these people do not know you, but they are willing to give up their hard-earned money for you, right? That's really saying something. That's a vote of confidence. So our financial contributions are essential. It is too that, you will see it in smaller ways, that you will see it, I see it on Facebook that we share a video and there's, people share it and say, please support our neighborhood or our teenagers. And I think that's what you want, is that you feel so strongly about the organization that you are really a cheerleader in whatever ways that you can be. I did an AmeriCorps program called City Year. And whenever I see another City Year student out on the street of Milwaukee, I always give them like a cheer or thank you for your service or whatever, because I feel that, and I want them to feel how much I appreciate what they're doing. And I think we are getting to that point where the community looks at some of the teens and says, wow, look at what you're able to do, and I'm proud of you.
And I think that too also boosts the confidence and the morale of the teens too, knowing that, they have that community support. And as you mentioned, people who don't even know them, believing in them, that factors in and plays a role in probably them sticking with the program and sticking with everything else and moving forward.
Yeah. In fact, I just thought about a video clip where a teen says exactly that they were selling at Outpost, they were selling some of their starter plants, and the people knew about the program and they were so congratulatory and impressed that it made an impact on the teenager, thinking like, oh wow, like, I don't know this person, but they think that I'm really something, so you can see the teenagers really listen and pay attention to that.
That's a real confidence booster.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to you, as well as to talk to the audience. The website is teensgrowgreens.org. If you want to take a look, and the applications are right on the website, and they close December 14th. Yeah, thanks for your time.
Well, thank you so much, Charlie.
Thank you,
We
Charlie.
hope that you have a large class next year through this platform.
Yeah.
So we're hoping to recruit 60 teens. Which
Wow, that's
is the most
awesome.
that we've done. So 30 on the north side and 30 on the south side, and there's definitely a demand. So we're hoping that we can fill those spots and grow the internship.
For more information about Teens Grow Greens, visit teensgrowgreens.org. Thank you so much to Charlie Uihlein for joining us on this episode. Lastly, this is our final episode of the Nutrition Education and Racial Disparities in Health special podcast series from Holistic Matters. But stay tuned for more conversations to come about racial disparities in health. To learn more about important topics in nutrition, visit WholisticMatters.com. That's holistic with a W.